Hello folks, Anahita Rao. Hope everyone is well. So here today I'm going to speak about a very basic concept to read the chart. It's so basic that it gets overlooked. But it is a very important secret for reading the chart. And you can quickly arrive at conclusions if you know this and if you apply it. Yeah. Foundations are important to understand. Right, how they work in a chart, the principles behind them. Lagna, of course, is a starting point to a chart because the chart revolves around the Lagna, basically, the first house. Similar to the sun in the solar system, where the planets revolve around the sun. Ascendant or Lagna represents the self, around which all the experiences revolve. So if your Lagna Lord is strong, you don't need as much support from others. You can freely move ahead with your plans, and you don't need the approval and you don't need the support. It's still nice to have it, but it's not essential in order for you to thrive and succeed in life. So let's discuss some of these essential principles in analyzing a chart. Now, to really see the influencers in the chart, we need to understand the natural zodiac, the Kalpurush, right? Which means Aries is always the first house, or the Lagna, and it's governed by Mars. Taurus is always the second house, and therefore connected to Dhan Bhava, Dhan meaning wealth, and it's governed by Venus. Second, we need to understand the Bhava Karakas for all of the houses. So let's take them one by one. For the first, which is Lagna, it's the sun. The sun is the Karaka. Second, Dhan Bhava. Dhan Bhava is the house of wealth. Dhan meaning, the word Dhan meaning wealth. It's Jupiter. Third is Sahaj, or co-borns, siblings. So it's Mars. Fourth is called Sukh Bhava. Sukh means, it means contentment, it means happiness, comforts, when you feel comfortable, in essence. So the moon and Mercury are the Karakas. The fourth Bhava. Fifth is Santan, which is what? Children. So we know Jupiter is a Karaka for the fifth. Sixth is what? Shatru. Shatru is what? Enemy. Mars becomes the Karaka. Seventh is conquest, victory. Venus becomes the Karaka. Eighth is Mrityu, which is death. So Saturn becomes a Karaka. 9 is Dharma. It's also duty, it's also purpose. So we see both Sun and Jupiter here for the 9th house. 10th is what? Karma, actions. So it's Sun, it's Mars, it's Mercury, and it's Saturn. 11th is Labha, which is essentially gains, and that's Jupiter. But we can also look at Sun and Saturn for the Karaka of the 11th house. 12th is what? Vyaya, which is expenses. It's not just expenses, it's also disappearance. It's ruin. Ruin as in, like, it could be yourself, like your body, your or it could be your life in some way that's been ruined. That's 12th. It's also losses. Right? That's why, I mean, we talk about isolation, we talk about hospitals, we talk about prison and all that. This is why disappearance, that's where that comes from. So, of course, it's Saturn. Right? So, in conclusion, Moon and Venus are the Karakas for only one bhava. Sun for 2, 1 and 9. Mars for 3 and 6. Mercury for 4 and 10. Saturn 6, 8, 10 and 12. Jupiter 2, 5, 9, 11 and 10. So Jupiter's quite important. And hence it's called Jivgarka, right? Now the analysis. When your Lagna Lord is placed in a certain house, then see it also as the sun going into that house. So for instance, your Lagna Lord is in the 7th, then the sun has gone into the 7th house, which is Venus's house. That of course is a concept of Nich Bhava, right? When Lagna Lord is placed in 4th house, then this is not necessarily positive, because it's as if the sun has gone into the 4th house. It can indicate a lack of principles, right? Because remember, sun signifies dharma, right? It can indicate a lack of principles because the sun is in the moon's house, and the moon can behave in an immoral way. Why? Because moon is changeable. It's a wavering planet. It's waxing, it's waning. Similarly, when 4th Lord is placed in the 8th house, it is akin to the fall of the 4th Lord. Why? Because it's as if the moon has gone into Scorpio. This can result in a lack of domestic happiness. It can result in a lack of comforts. And when is it going to show up? It's going to show up in the dasha of the 4th Lord, right? And then there's a concept of Uch Bhava. Uch means up, like higher, exalted. So here it's the opposite. If we take the Lagna Lord and we place it in the 10th house, then it may very well act as Uch Bhava, right? That place, that house. Because it's as if we've placed the sun in the 10th house, where the sun does very well. But how about if we place the 10th Lord in the 1st house? So the opposite scenario. Well, here it's a different story. Because remember, Saturn is also the Karaka of the 10th house. So here it's as if Saturn has gone into the 10th. It's as if Saturn has gone into the 1st house. So this can result in health issues. It can also result in a very low self-esteem. And this is especially the case in childhood years. Now, how about if we take the 10th Lord and place it in the 7th house? Well, this is excellent. Because it's as if we have taken Saturn and placed him in the 7th house. And that's where Saturn gets exalted and gains Digbala. And it could be any planet that's the 10th Lord, right? Like Mercury, let's say, or Mars even. Normally Mercury and Mars don't do well in the 7th house, because it's considered Maranakarka for them. But here we can extract some benefits from this position. So we always have to see more than one factor to understand what the results the planet's going to give in that house, right? Same position, Mars or Mercury. Right? Mars or Mercury, they're the 10th Lord, and they're sitting in the 7th house. Well, it can make you very devoted to your work, to your career. It can make you well known also. It can lead to positive growth. So yes, it's Maranakarka Sthana, but it depends. What's their lordship, right? This position of the 10th Lord and the 7th can also give a reputable or popular spouse. Or partners, business partners too. Here's a common one you always hear about. Like, we always hear about this one. 5th Lord in the 7th house. 2 good houses, right? So you always hear positive results. But actually results can go the other way. Because it's as if you're taking Jupiter and Sun and you're placing it in Venus's house. Essentially, it's fire. It's fire going into a house that's connected to relationships, which can create competition with your partner. It can create power struggles. So it's not necessarily good for marriage. Of course, we also have to see whether the houses themselves are suited to the planets. And whether that house is getting any aspects. And from whom, right? So the analysis doesn't end there. The rule, of course, is that benefic influences strengthen the benefic potential, and malefic influences strengthen the negative potential. So for instance, wherever the Lagna Lord is placed, it will, of course, give the results of the Sun, but also Mars, right? Because Mars rules Aries, and that's the Galbruch first house, which is governed by Mars. So since Mars owns 2 houses, it will not only give the first house Aries result, but also the 8th house Scorpio result. Which one dominates? Well, that depends on the dignity of the Lagna Lord and the aspects it receives. So now we come to the second part of this video, right? Who is influencing who? The rule is that wherever the graha is placed, it will impact the results of that house for sure, but also indirectly influence the result of the house that it aspects. So let's take an example again. We have Lagna Lord in the 5th house. And that means Lagna Lord is taking the 1st and 8th house energies, Sun and Mars, into the 5th house. So this is not great. This can cause unhappiness on account of children. In some cases, it can give death of children. But what about the other way around? 5th Lord in the Lagna. So here, it's bringing the energy of the 5th Lord, as well as the Sun and Mars and Jupiter, right? Jupiter is a Karaka of the 5th house, into the Lagna. So this is very positive. Jupiter gains Digbala in the 1st house, and the Sun gives a strong will, confidence, leadership. And with Jupiter's influence, we can expect the benefits of knowledge, intelligence, past life merits coming to that person. And when is it going to play out? Especially in the Jupiter Dasha, it's going to play out, right? So roughly speaking, the results are 80% by the lordship's internal attributes. Internal meaning like Garka, like for example, 2nd Lord is wealth, family, speech. And 20% by the bhava itself, by that space. For instance, you have 2nd Lord in 4th house. Then you can gain wealth. By what? By 4th house matters. Teaching, real estate, anything to do with vehicles, your mother, something to do with your mother, birthplace. But what if it's a weak 2nd Lord going into that 4th house? Then you could lose more wealth than gain it. Because it's the dignity and strength of that 2nd Lord that's going to determine the activity of the place where it is, right? In other words, the planet itself and what it represents is more important than the house for the results. Yes? The essence of a planet is to nurture its lordship, like whatever it represents in your chart, through the house that it sits in. So for example, a 7th lord is in the 2nd house, then that 7th lord will need to have a connection with family in order to feel good. And wealth will also be important to the 7th lord to nourish itself. Right? So if you have this placement, 7th lord in the 2nd, then your spouse would require those things to feel secure and nourished in the relationship. It will use the significations of the house to nourish itself. This is known as the transfer of resources. So what are the significations of Lagna? That would be intellect, a sense of purpose, like your path. That's why we connect the sun to the 1st house, your life path. Ability to discriminate right from wrong. That's the dharma. I think that's dharma connecting with sun, and that makes sense too. Ideals, principles, all of that. Also likes and dislikes. Right? Your personality, your beliefs, your belief systems, your body, your constitution also. So just the physical aspect. External significations of this would be external significations are person's birthplace, homeland, body, health, as I said, social identity, language, culture, religion. We can see all of that from the Lagna. The ultimate objective of the Lagna Lord is to attain success and fulfill the life purpose. It will always protect the significations, even at the cost of the bhava, right? Even at the cost of the house where it's situated. So if we say that Lagna is akin to Mars, then it can aspect the 7th, 4th, and 8th houses and influence them indirectly. I'm actually going to make a very important video about aspects, because Mars's 4th and 8th aspect is far more significant than the 7th one. So, of course, you have to also see the actual aspects, right? The place where Lagna Lord aspects, it actively tries to control and influence that place. Depending on the Lagnesh, the results will vary. For Taurus Lagna, the 7th from there is important. And what's that? Scorpio. So it can indicate like a strong libido, for instance, right? Whereas for Sagittarius, 4th from the Lagnesh will be significant. So things like education, home, right? And for Scorpio, the 8th will be influential. So things like occult, inheritances, investments, life's mysteries. If the Lagna Lord is strong, then it will always protect the significations of the Lagna. If it's weak, then the bhava can sap away the resources through that Lagna Lord. Lagna Lord, carrying the sun's energy, it charges the house where it's situated. But if it's weak, then it can manifest the energy of the 8th house, which is destructive to that house. So, all right, that's just a glimpse of how to read the influences in a chart, keeping in mind the basics. And what are the basics? The natural karakas. So, hope you enjoyed that. Feel free to comment, and don't forget to subscribe for more. Cheers.